Okay, we are ready to roll. So is that Nicholas? Is that who was talking?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. Okay, so I would like to welcome you all to this, our third forum. And I'm Flo Appel. I'm a member of the Indivisible DuPage leadership team. And the other member of our team who's with us tonight is Erica Bray Parker. And I think we'll just get started and let the judicial candidates educate us all. We did have someone who we had invited to make an introduction about the importance of the courts, but unfortunately I don't see him on this. So we'll go ahead and rely on our candidates to do that. We've all been sensitized, I think, to the importance of the courts, but tonight we want to drill down a little bit more and learn more about what the issues are and how serious and significant they are. So why don't we get started, since we don't have Judge Mary Kay O'Brien, but we do have Nicholas, I'm sorry, your last name is Giannini?
Yeah, Giannini. Yep.
We would like to welcome you. And we're looking at 1 to 2 minutes from each of the judicial candidates and then a number of questions. We have some prepared and we welcome everyone else to put questions in the chat. And we will present those questions to the candidates as well. So why don't you get started and tell us about Judge Mary Kay O'Brien.
All right. This is a last minute addition for me, so I do not have the full spiel here, and we'll probably defer to Sonny and Jill on some of the judicial
Nick,
stuff here.
Do you want me to go ahead and introduce and do her background, because I think I probably know it by heart.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think between you and Jill, you two might have been at more events with her than myself. I just wanted to be a representative for her and pass along her thanks and her regrets for not being able to hop on herself.
Yeah, well, I think many of us have seen her in many places and know that all the candidates are running around like crazy. So we understand. But Sonny, if you would like to talk about Mary Kay, and that would be awesome.
Yeah, and talk about.
Uh-oh. I don't know if you're frozen. Oh boy. This is one of those nights.
You want me to give it a shot until it comes down?
Okay, how about Jill Addy?
All right, I will tell you about our illustrious leader. So Mary Kay O'Brien has been an appellate court justice for 19 years come this December. Prior to that, she did work, let me back up. She was elected as a House representative, I want to say it was 1994, and she was there for a couple of terms. She comes from a farming family down south, I want to say in Will County, and she has been an amazing leader of our group. So, oh, looks like Sonny's back. Sonny, I gave the minor blurb.
Yeah, so let me just, if I'm repeating something that Jill has already said, please forgive me. So Justice Mary Kay O'Brien has been sitting in the 3rd District Appellate Court for nearly 19 years. She was elected back in, I think, 2001, 2002. So she is currently sitting there. And 3rd District Appellate Court that covers all of DuPage, Will, Kankakee, Iroquois, LaSalle, Grundy, and Bureau. So she has experience of, dealing with over 4,000 or 5,000 appeal cases, and she is running for the vacancy of Justice Kilbride. Justice Kilbride was not retained because Ken Griffin pumped in $12 million to oust him, because he thought, if I can't get the, the governor's, empower that he wanted, and also the power in the assembly, why not control the courts? Because regardless of what the assembly passes and what Governor Pritzker signs, it will be challenged. And we need to make sure that we keep the balance of the Supreme Court in favor of all the democratic values, protecting the middle class, the working men and women of our great state, and being able to have that background, and being someone who was, she was born in a farm on Reddick in Kankakee County, and so she will be able to maintain that balance, especially in this time when we've seen our attack on women's right for the medical, choice of their medical procedure with the advice of their doctors, and so many other things coming down the pipeline. So she needs to be retained, because it's key to, not only, protecting our rights, but also future appointments. So when Justice Mary Kay O'Brien gets elected to the Illinois Supreme Court, she will do the appointing of vacancies in the circuit court levels, including DuPage, including Will County. And she will be able to appoint people, not, because they were golf buddies, years ago, and they made promises to support a candidate. And that gives a leg up to what we've seen in our courtroom. You go to the courtroom, you're going to see mostly white male Republican jurists on the DuPage County Circuit Court. So she will make those appointments, and it will give people the advantage. Someone like me, someone like Jill Oddie, someone who we would not have, friends entrenched in the court system to appoint us. So that is key for us to make sure that she gets appointed. And this is a hard battle that we need to make sure that she keeps. And just, her opponent is not the incumbent. Her opponent was appointed to the Supreme Court for the 2nd district vacancy, for the vacancy of Justice Thomas. So, don't let people say, well, her opponent's a sitting judge. No, he's not. Oops.
Okay, thank you. So Sunny, would you like to give us a minute or so about yourself and your interest in serving on the appellate court?
Okay. Yes. I think my battery was running low. That's why I lost. I don't know why it was not target. Hopefully that will help. So, hold on a second.
Should we let Jill talk and then we can come back to you? Why don't we do that? So Jill Oddie is running for circuit court. So Jill, why don't you tell us something about yourself?
Sure. First, let me tell people what the difference is, since we don't have Mary Kay.
Thank you.
What all these different courts are. So circuit court judges are the judges that if somebody gets a traffic ticket, or somebody has a dispute with a neighbor, or somebody's getting divorced, those are the judges that you're more likely to see, because those are the judges that are in the branch courts and the judges that are downtown in Wheaton. And so that's where Mia's going to go at the end of next week, and that's where I hope to go just a few weeks after her. To give you a little bit of information about myself, for those of you that are new, I have been a public servant and a litigator my entire career. So what does that mean? That means I've always worked for the government, but in different capacities. So I started as a young lawyer at the Kane County State's Attorney's Office, where I did trials in all of those courtrooms that you've heard about, so traffic, misdemeanor, DUI, mental health, felony, and felony drug courts. And that's where I did my jury trials. And that's where I did so many bench trials. I never counted them because I didn't think I would need to know the difference, or I didn't think I'd need to know the number at some point in time. After 5 years of that, I moved to the Illinois Attorney General's office, and I've been there ever since. And what that move did for me is it moved me from being a criminal prosecutor to being a civil defense attorney. So no longer was I prosecuting criminals and potentially sending them to jail or giving them community service as settlement pleas. But now I work for the Attorney General's office, and I am judiciously spending all of our tax dollars. It's a very different creature. I've had a lot of varied experience through the Attorney General's office, which I'm really quite grateful for, because I've been in different venues throughout the upper portion of our state. I did a trial in the Galesburg prison years ago. I've done trials at the Sexually Violent Treatment Center down there in Joliet. I've also done hearings across the state. So I've been to Ottawa and I've been to their courthouse, and we did, I think it was a property damage case. So I've been lucky to have different kinds of cases, yet also in different forums. And what that's allowed me to see is that I am perfectly suited for this position because I have the trial experience, which the rules of evidence are the same wherever you go in the state of Illinois. People argue about them all the time, and the judge has to make a ruling. But as long as you have a foundation of trial experience and hearing experience and getting in front of a judge and doing motion practice, you're going to be a successful judge. And so I really look forward to that. I can tell you my current position at the Attorney General's office is I'm not a frontline assistant attorney general anymore. I supervise those attorneys. So I now supervise approximately 16 attorneys, depending on when we're fully staffed. And those are the folks that are going into the courtrooms every day in an attempt to make sure that our money is spent wisely in these workers' compensation cases. And what that means is I am having conversations with these lesser experienced lawyers every day about how to communicate better with our client, who is quite difficult, how to communicate with our opposing counsels, who sometimes are difficult, how to get pieces of evidence in, how to present something in front of a judge so that our position is at its most persuasive. And I can also tell you that since we last spoke, I have been rated highly recommended by the DuPage County Bar Association.
Woo.
And yeah, I'm pretty excited about it, but I got to tell you, it's not a foolproof process. It is, there's a lot of Republicans on that team. I think I got lucky in that nothing in my professional life or my personal life has changed since they first rated me in 2018. So yes, it's great because people will see it if they look it up. Do people look it up? I don't know. But I am very excited to be a part of this process. I feel like there is momentum going for Democrats because, as we've all heard since June, judges are finding themselves in the news. And I just read, I can't remember which one of the Supreme Court justices said it, but it was something along the lines of, making law shouldn't happen that the justices change at the Supreme Court and all of a sudden new laws pop up. There's supposed to be some sort of continuity, and there is supposed to be an adherence to precedents, because that's how the attorneys that appear in front of you will know how they can expect you to rule on particular decisions. So I feel like I've spoken more than 1 or 2 minutes. So I'll just end with, please vote Jill for judge and tell all of your friends.
Thank you. Okay, Sunny, do you want to give us a minute about the appellate court, and then we'll, I think the questions will be interesting and give you guys an opportunity to explain more to the rest of us.
Yeah, and sorry about being frozen. I think I unplugged my battery while I was running around. But anyways, so people ask, so what does the appellate court do? What do they do? So there are check and balances on trial court judges who either refuse to follow the law or follow it incorrectly. So I shared this story with many of you here that when the Marriage Equality Act was passed back in 2013-14 to allow same-sex couples to get married, I actually know that judges who refused to administer same-sex marriages because they said it was against their religion or their personal belief. But the judges are sworn, in, like what Jill mentioned, to obey and to comply with the laws of the state of Illinois, regardless of whether or not they have a personal belief against it. So that's the check and balances. And, I've actually, done a lot of appeal cases, but mostly defending good judges and good decisions. And when Jill gets appointed, I highly doubt that I would be, reversing her. But, that's what, you have the automatic right to have a case heard by the court of review, which is what the appellate court does, of any trial court judges or any judgments in the trial court level, as long as you file that appeal within 30 days. And the importance of the appellate court is that oftentimes those decisions by the appellate court will stay on the third district appellate court level, because the Illinois Supreme Court, they take only about like 8 or 9% of cases that are appealed to them, because the Supreme Court, their whole entire panel of 7 judges hears that appeal, the whole entire panel. Whereas the appellate court, you get randomly assigned 3 judges from the appellate court that will hear that case. And right now we have 2 women on the appellate court, and that's Justice Mary Kay O'Brien and Judge Mary McDade, who's a good friend of mine from Peoria. And those are the only 2 female judges. Judge Vicki Wright retired. That's the vacancy that I am running for. We need to make sure that we keep our, not only the representation from a, gender basis, but also I would be the first Asian American to be elected on the appellate court. So 23 years of experience, won almost all of my appeal cases except for 1, good track record. And I've been successful because I work hard and I listen to both sides. So that's those characteristics that you need for a good judge on the appellate court.
Okay, well, thank you. So we do have some questions. You actually answered some of them in both of your presentations. But let's go with one that I think a lot of us are thinking about these days, which is the what we're referring to as the Workers' Rights Amendment, which we know is going to be the first thing on the ballot on November 8th. And we're actually having a speaker talk directly to that at our final forum on October 25th. So if this amendment passes, how will that impact judicial decisions throughout Illinois regarding the rights and protections of workers?
Yeah, and as judicial candidates, we can't take a position on issues that may come before the courts, especially if there are challenges. It'll start from the trial court level, percolate up to the appellate court, and then probably most likely eventually the Illinois Supreme Court. But as far as what I know of what the proposed amendment is, it doesn't directly impact the actual judicial branch itself. There's misconception, I've heard someone say that it will raise your property tax. There's nothing in the amendment that says that, and it doesn't force employees to, join a union. It just gives them protection, because I don't know if you're aware, when Bruce Rauner was our governor, he pushed very hard on the right to work, proposal, which would basically say that, you really didn't have the right to organize it, or put allowed like local municipalities to pass an ordinance that says, no, you really can't join a organized, organized unions. But if you did, you can't force your employees to pay union dues. And it came at the reaction of the Janus case, where the U.S. Supreme Court said that, you could be a member of a union, but you have a First Amendment to say no to getting your dues automatically deducted. So that kind of opened up the floodgates. And so, but as far as the direct impact to the courts, I don't see any direct impact except for cases that will come up and challenge that amendment.
Jill, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't have anything to add to Sunny's explanation. I think she's absolutely right that we do have to be careful to not comment on things that may come before the bench. And so I think I'll just leave it with what Sunny said so far, because there's nothing really that we could add.
Okay, thank you. So I think it was Sunny who mentioned that our state Supreme Court hears 8 to 9% of the cases that are presented to them. Is there any wisdom you can impart about how those cases, how it's decided which cases will be taken up?
Yeah, usually the Illinois Supreme Court will hear cases where there's like a conflict on different appellate courts. So this second district appellate court that now has Kane and McHenry County and Lake County, there may be something on the appellate court that they ruled that it's in contrast or conflict, of a ruling in the third district appellate court, or there may be a fifth district appellate court on that same issue and there's a conflict. So they may take that case to resolve that conflict and say, no, for the whole entire state of Illinois, this is what the law is versus what it is in the third or the fifth district or the second district. They will, try to resolve that question. The other, questions that a case that they may take up is something where they want to, kind of render an opinion on. There may not be a conflict, but the subject matter is so important enough that they will take that case. But then there are cases that you never know they would take up. I actually handled a case all the way from the administrative hearing level to the Illinois Supreme Court. And I was surprised that they took that case because it really wasn't, a case of first impression. It wasn't something that was novel that the Illinois Supreme Court needed to address. It was a, issue of a liquor license revocation. And, there were some nuanced issues regarding whether or not, holding a liquor license was a property right, which, it is once you issue and you are afforded due process, but you're afforded a due process at a different level than if it was a fundamental right. And so those are the things that cases that you kind of wonder and go, why did they take that case? But normally they will take a case of first impression that they want to kind of give a guidance to the rest of the state and all the other courts in the state, or there's a conflict in the appellate court level of different jurisdiction that they want to resolve that conflict. And that's it. And then also constitutional challenges to, a state law or something like that. They will end up, most likely taking those cases because it does resolve an important issue for the rest of the, constituents of the rest of the people in the state of Illinois.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay. Could you please provide some guidance on the issue of the retention of judges? In the last several days, I was talking to Erica earlier, 4 people have contacted me. We're out there all the time, with the election process, and people ask us questions about, recommendations. And 4 people in the last 2 days have asked me, what about these retentions? And I realized that I didn't really know. So Jill, do you want to take it?
Sure, I can start with that. So I believe there are 6 judges that are up for retention this year. And one of them, well, let me back up. All 6 are Republicans whenever they ran as circuit court judges some time ago. One of them, Bonnie Wheaton, even though she's a Republican in name only, she is a Democrat through and through. She actually endorsed me in my campaign. Because she's on the ballot, she can do that. Any other day, any other time of year, she would not be able to do that. And what I have been telling folks, because I've been getting those same text messages and phone calls flow, is I tell everybody Bonnie Wheaton is a yes. And then I try not to talk negatively about anybody else, but I just say the rest of them are all Republicans. And then somebody will say, should I vote for them? Should I vote yes? And I'll say Bonnie Wheaton is a yes for the second time. And then people understand my point. But what they have to get in order to be retained is that 60% of the people have to say yes. And the reality is it is very difficult to remove a judge from this retention process. And some of you may recall, it was Judge Patrick O'Shea who 4 years ago got himself into trouble, and he was on the ballot for retention, and he was still retained, even though later he was removed from the ballot, and that was the spot that Azam Nizamuddin ran in 2 years ago. So even when judges have trouble, it's tough to get them off. That's why it is so important to choose wisely, because even though these positions are for 6 years, you know, Bonnie's been in there for a long time because she's great. But what if she, you know, what if somebody else isn't great? They could be there for a very long time.
And I could
Can I add a
just,
quick?
yeah. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
Okay. I just wanted to add on really quickly about Bonnie Wheaton. I think we all remember January 6th is a very dark day in this country when our government was attacked. One of the people who reached out to me was Ann Wick, who was part of Sean Casten's team. Sean had just won a hard-fought victory versus Jeannie Ives, and they were afraid for his safety. And so we swore him in outside during COVID at St. James Farm in the middle of winter with a very small crew, and I was not allowed to tell anyone. And the judge that swore him in was Bonnie Wheaton. So I think we know she's on our team. We know she's awesome. So I just wanted to add that quick story.
Yeah.
That's a good one, Dan.
Yeah,
Thank
that is
you.
super good. And, you know, in fact, we watched the Jane's Army, the movie with her, or is it, I forgot. And so, and she was part of that group when, you know, abortion was illegal to, you know, help provide, you know, a safe way of getting that, you know, procedure done. But as far as retention, so for the circuit court, they come up for retention every 6 years. And retention is a little bit confusing because they're running not against any opponent, but themselves, you know, and there's no party affiliation on it. So they don't run in the primary. They go automatically to the general election and no party affiliation. And the only question is, should this judge be retained? It's a yes or no. And if you get less than 60%, then you're not retained. And Justice Kilbride, like I mentioned, is the only sitting Supreme Court justice who was not retained. And that's because Ken Griffin put all those awful, nasty ad tying him to Madigan, you know, the commercial with truckload of money with, you know, a picture of Madigan smirking. And then, you know, the whole tagline, you know, Justice Kilbride is Madigan's favorite judge. And that, you know, was unfairly, you know, done to Justice Kilbride, and that's why he lost that retention. For the appellate court justices and the Supreme Court justices, they come up for retention every 10 years. So it's, you know, when I get elected in 2022, it would be until 2032, which seems kind of crazy, you know, that the retention will come up. So it is, in a way, a lifetime appointment. And, you know, that's what is hard to kind of change the face of our justice, change the face of people who are sitting on the bench, because once you get elected, it's hard to, you know, remove them through, you know, retention cycles. And it's, you know, those 10-year cycle and 6-year cycle, they could be there for a lifetime. And so last time the voters had an opportunity to vote for someone new in the 3rd district was back in 2006, when Justice Vicki Wright, the person that I'm running for the vacancy, that's when she won her election. So it doesn't come too often. And that's why when Jill and I, we have a non-traditional path to being on the, you know, on the bench. We weren't appointed an associate judge because the circuit judges do the appointing. And then once they do that, they get a leg up on these elections. And that perpetuates the same cycle of the same group of people who hold power in our court system. And we have to stop that, because the 3rd branch of the government, we're about the least reflective of the community than any other branch that we have in our government. So 2022 is about time that we change the face of justice.
Well, thank you, guys, so much. I learned a lot. I thought I thought I knew it all, but I think having the opportunity to ask questions and get answers is really valuable. So I appreciate your participation here tonight. I'm going to do an interesting segue now to the next item on our agenda. We do have a speaker from the Wisconsin Democrats, and that is Kate Putman. And I want to do the segue with the Wisconsin Supreme Court. I am a volunteer for the Wisconsin Democrats, and I pay a lot of attention to the the changes in laws, election laws that have taken place in that state. And I every time I have I say this little joke, but it's not really very funny. Every time I check in on Wisconsin election law, I find out that the Wisconsin Supreme Court has removed yet another voting right. So we are very fortunate to have Kate Putman with us tonight to explain to us how the Wisconsin Democrats are moving forward with this election, and in spite of the fact that the Wisconsin Supreme Court has not been a friend to voting rights. So Kate, I did make you a co-host, so you should be able to share your screen.
Awesome. I'll just briefly introduce myself and then I'll get going with the slides. My name's Kate. I am a deputy voter protection associate here with the WisDems voter protection team. I'm an Illinois native. I grew up in Naperville, so DuPage County is so dear to me. I'm really glad that I have the opportunity to talk with you guys today. It's really special to be able to connect kind of my personal life and my professional life. Like you mentioned, Wisconsin is definitely a little bit of a headache when it comes to voting rights. My team, the voter protection team, is doing everything we can to make sure voting rights are protected in the state, that people are elected in Wisconsin that support the right to vote for the residents of the state, that support the rights that everybody should have access to. So I will share my screen now, and hopefully once I do it successfully, I'm still technologically challenged. You should be seeing cows on my screen. So if everybody can see that, I hope that that's good. And I get it. I thought that the Dairyland moniker was a little bit of an over exaggeration, but I went to school here at UW-Madison and I've been here for about 5 years, and it is not an over exaggeration. They're very, very passionate about dairy. So I thought it was appropriate that we start the slide off with that. Like I said, I am a voter protection associate with the WisDems voter protection team. And I'm just here to talk to you guys a little bit today about why Wisconsin matters, why as an Illinois native, I care about our Midwest neighbor, and hopefully how I can get you guys to support us and understand kind of the way that it works here, what obstacles we're facing to support voters and things like that. There we go. So elections in Wisconsin are incredibly close. I'm sure you guys know that. When I was living in Illinois, I wasn't as politically minded as I am now. But having been an active voter, an active participant in politics, and living in Wisconsin for the past 5 or so years, it's become really evident how purple the state is, how influential that mix of Republicans and Democrats are in these elections. I keep wanting to click the wrong thing to go to the next slide. For context, in Wisconsin, President Joe Biden won by only about 20,000 votes. It sounds like a big number when you put it all together, but it's just an average of 3 votes per polling place. It really boils down to a very small number of people per municipal voting place in Wisconsin. And kind of similarly to what I said, of the closest battleground states in that election, Biden won by just about 0.6%. And that line or that number rides the Electoral College tipping point so closely and was really one of the biggest deciding factors in that election. And these upcoming general elections are no different. It's going to be a very tight race. There are a lot of things that are in place to suppress voters, the state is incredibly gerrymandered, kind of as was mentioned before. I feel like every day I wake up and there's another voting right that's been stripped away in Wisconsin. And so that's what my team is really helping to kind of combat, and what we hope that you guys can help us do as well. My team really focuses on creating a poll observer program in Wisconsin. We've been cultivating volunteers for months now to poll observe with us on November 8th. And we do have a lot of Illinois volunteers as well. You don't have to be a Wisconsin resident to volunteer with us. And we really hope that, I mean, personally myself, I feel very passionate about kind of crossing those two bridges, but we really hope that you guys would be willing to help us out this November. We actually have a poll observer training going on right now. That's why I was a little bit late to this meeting, just hopped out of that virtually to come into this. But I'm sure you guys have seen poll observers, but just a quick definition, they're the eyes and the ears at the polling place for our team. They keep our team informed on how the election's going, things like line length, if the voting machines are working correctly, all those type of things. They really keep us updated on what's happening on the ground. But most importantly, they serve as a last line of defense against instances of voter suppression. That can be anything from a lack of accessible voting outside. A lot of instances over the past elections that our poll observers have helped with is making sure there's adequate signage and making sure that that's known to people that they can participate in voting if they are challenged by different ways of getting into the polling place or things like that. Our poll observers really help to make sure that those are known and identifiable. They also help with things like a lack of information on voter ID laws, photo voter ID laws. Wisconsin has a pretty strict photo ID law when it comes to the type of identification that you can have when you vote. And some of our voters don't have the correct information on that. And that's what our poll observers can help them kind of oversee and cast their ballot. Like I said before, poll observers don't have to be a Wisconsin resident. That's part of the reason why I'm talking to you guys today. They don't have to be lawyers. They don't have to live in Wisconsin. They just have to be able to get to Wisconsin. And we have a large amount of people from Illinois that poll observe with us. We have people from all over the country, people that fly out to poll observe just because they know how important it is to protect voters in Wisconsin and how at risk our voters are of being suppressed. We'll go to the next slide. Just a reiteration of why this is important. President Biden won Wisconsin again by 20,000 votes. If we can protect those 2 to 3 people per polling place and make sure that they're able to cast their ballot, that can decide an election. And there are laws put in place so that more than 2 to 3 people are unable to cast their ballot. And that's what we're there to do, to make sure that we are doing everything that we can to allow everybody that wants to cast a ballot in Wisconsin the ability to do so. On November 8th, amongst many other people, voters will have the chance to re-elect Governor Evers and send Mandela Barnes to the Senate. These are people that will work to fight for the rights of Wisconsinites. Since Roe v. Wade has been overturned, Governor Evers has had to veto numerous, I think it's closer over 10 anti-abortion bills and full abortion bans in the state of Wisconsin. And so having somebody in office that is working to protect not only my rights, but the rights of everybody that ovulates in Wisconsin, everybody that should have the right to choose, is something really important. As well as Mandela Barnes, having somebody in the Senate on that national political scale, having somebody that represents us, that is demonstrating active ability to support our rights is really important. Just briefly, how to become a poll observer. There's 3 really easy steps. You can fill out our poll observer sign up. I'll drop that in the chat after I am done. You can attend an election law training. Like I said, one of those is going on right now, so you can't attend that one. But we have 5 other dates if you would like to participate with us in that way. And you can attend a tech check. That's just so that we can make sure that all of our technology is put in place and all of our people are able to use it and know how to inform us of different things, and just make sure that all of our technology is put in place. I completely understand. Like I said, I'm technologically challenged, so that would be very helpful for me. But yeah, that's the majority of what I had to say. Again, I wanted to thank you all so much for having me here. It's been really special to be able to talk to people in a community that I care about a community that I care about. And so that's been really special. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I'm happy to answer them. I do have to hop back to the Zoom training in just a few minutes, but I have a little bit of time for questions if anybody has them. I'm happy to answer those.
I did put the URL in the chat, so you don't have to worry about it.
Awesome. Thank you, Connie. I really appreciate it. It's really people like you that are willing to listen to me, that are willing to volunteer with us, that makes my life easier, makes a difference in the lives of voters in Wisconsin. If you guys have any lingering questions, I'll drop it in the chat as well. We have a voter protection inbox that you can send any questions to, and I'll drop it in the chat. It's pollobserving@wisdems.org. You can send any and all poll observing questions to that. I man that inbox Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. So if you want to be in contact with me directly, you can email on those days. We'd be more than happy to have any of you guys who want to volunteer with us. Again, if you have any questions, you know where to reach me. I can be here for a few more minutes. But I just want to thank you guys for listening and taking the time out of your schedule tonight to let me sneak in here and talk to you guys for just a minute.
Well, thank you. We in Indivisible DuPage have identified Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Georgia as the swing states that we have thrown more attention to and, lent our hand and also gave our participants the opportunity to do that. And as someone who has been a part of the Wisconsin Dems efforts, I can say that the support that you get from the WisDems team is really, really phenomenal. You never feel like you don't know what you're doing because you don't live in Wisconsin. So I really appreciate everything that the WisDems is doing, and hope that we have enough eyes on the polling places so that people can vote. Any questions?
So do I.
Or,
yeah.
yeah.
I don't know if anybody has anything else. If not, I won't take up any more of your time. But again, if you have any questions, just shoot them to that email inbox that I put in there. We'd be so incredibly happy to have any of you if you have the time on November 8th to sign up with us. And that is all I have. I just wanted to thank you guys one more time. It's been a real pleasure. And I appreciate all of the work you guys are doing in my hometown, my home community. It doesn't go unnoticed by me or my family who still lives there. It's really special what you guys have been doing. So thank you for that.
And thank you. So we're going to move on now to something, that we all need in our lives, which is nature and forest preserves. And those of us who have been living in DuPage County for a while now have come to appreciate and probably even take for granted the special work that our DuPage Forest Preserve has done on our behalves. And so we're going to start with Dan Hebriard, who is currently the president of the DuPage Forest Preserve. And he's going to give us some information and background on the Forest Preserve, and then we're going to hear from our candidates. So Dan, why don't you take it away?
Well, I'm going to tell you a little bit something different. I do want to talk about the Forest Preserve, but we can no longer pretend to live in the greatest free country in the world when we have one party that no longer wants to participate. We have a president that led a coup against our nation. We had a governor who led a war against unions and tried to destroy our completely safe, good state of Illinois by undermining our paying our bills, as we heard from Susana Mendoza over the last few years. So when we have a party that is no longer believing in democracy and is undermining women's rights, union rights, and the freedom of our country, We need good people to stand up. And I will tell you, because I know you guys are indivisible DuPage, we have had an incredible amount of people stand up. I stood up against a multimillionaire president of the Forest Preserve who thought it was his right to be president, who diminished benefits for our employees, and was a completely anti-union leader. I'm proud to have won a shoestring campaign win in 2018 for Blue Wave. Since then, we have led the fight against climate change, where we've fallen behind the rest of the world. The United States needs people like Sean Casten. And locally, we are fighting to make sure that we have great solar projects and great opportunities for you to see that in action in your local government. So we're going to have, we think, the first net zero animal hospital potentially in the world. But I would guess in the United States, that's going to take care of native wildlife at Willowbrook. We've held the line on taxes and shown what good government looks like. And with that, I will pass it along to some of my team members who are currently with me and a few that are going to be joining me as we sweep through November.
Okay. Well, how about Tina?
Hello. So I'm the commissioner currently in District 2 running for re-election. I know Daniel covered a lot of it already, but I want to take a little bit of a different turn. So the talking points that the Republicans are using right now against all of us is they're saying we're just about brick and mortar. So something I want to point out is the Republicans that have been on that board for ages, and some of them are there since the start of the separate forest preserve, you know, they haven't been taking care of our structures. So Willowbrook is a perfect example of something that they didn't upkeep. So now we have to build a brand new structure. So, but these are all also certified master plans that we are doing. They've been approved by the board. They've been approved by the public that had huge amount of input in our master plan. So these are things that our community wants. So if you hear anybody, if you're out knocking doors and you hear anybody talking about how we're not just planting trees and we're, you know, building things only, we only care about building and, you know, paving things and making parking lots, just remember those points. These are all things that are needed. I mean, the parking lot we just did in Waterfall Glen, it's a huge safety issue. Over 300 people on the weekends were parking on the streets. You know, thankfully we didn't have any major accidents, but that was an accident waiting to happen. And it's a beautiful thing. Hopefully we'll be adding flush toilets to those eventually. But, you know, so we are doing some amazing work. I'm so proud. I can't believe it's almost been 2 years already. It feels like we've been there 5 years for the amount of things that we've gotten done on this board and having a great Democratic majority. I hope we keep it and build on it and many more years to come. But just remember, trees is not just the only thing about restoration work. Has a lot more to do with native plants and introducing those and making sure you have a healthy tree population, not just throwing some trees down that our opponents like to talk about. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tina. Mary Beth Carlson, would you like to weigh in? I think you're muted.
Good evening. Got it?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Happy Columbus Day and happy Indigenous Peoples Day. We have to remember that because we are on their land, especially when we walk through the forest preserve. I have been walking doors. This one here looks like this. I've been out in the rain, but that's nothing new to me. I worked outside for many, many years, but so I'm going to have to, I had to have notes. I'm kind of tired, so I'm going to give you my notes. I'm not on the board yet. I feel like I've bonded with the people on the board. I love the people on the board. I know that's strong, but they share my beliefs. They share what I believe in what we need to protect. But as I walk around in the doors, I get all these interesting questions about the county board, and I can't answer them as a candidate. So what I want to tell you today is what I have to just tell you about myself, and then let's go. We'll start it that way. When I became aware of this position being opened, I thought, wow, great, because I've always been outdoors. I've worked outside most of my life, and I said, how could I not do this? How could I not try for this? I grew up in Chicago as a concrete kid. My world was 25 by 75 foot, and my dad his people came from another country, and he took me out to Cook County Forest Preserves. Without the Cook County Forest Preserves, I wouldn't be this person that I am now. He taught me to hobie hunt, that's mushrooms. He taught me to love snakes and try to, learn about them. Toads, he walked through the woods with me and taught me things that the native people who lived here, how they used the land. It became part of my DNA, not just because my dad gave me part of my DNA, but he put it inside of me, and that I carry with me till the day I die. I will always love the outdoors. I believe that we should plant today for tomorrow. We have to look at what we're doing today because so much damage was done before we got here. Dan and his team have done. I keep telling the people at the door, you got to vote for Dan. I can't vote for you, Tina, because you're not my district. But I say you got to vote for Dan. He's done a crackerjack job. I'm a conservationist. When I moved up here from 30 years ago and I walked through those forest preserves of DuPage, I was like, what the heck what's going on here? I knew what was going on here. Dan comes along, boom, he changes it around. I want to be part of that team. I want to be part of this team that's working so intelligently to maintain our state's heritage of natural diversity. I was a farm advisor for nearly 4 decades. I worked outside most of my life. I can steer cattle, I can milk cows. That slide that woman showed, those are young dairy Holsteins. I learned in those times of working with farmers and being outside all the time, what we were learning, what we were leaving behind here in the prairie state. We have to fight today because we've lost so much. Our forests are the last bastion of what we have lost and what we need to protect. We have to protect them. We're losing our pollinators. We're losing our migratory birds. This is so much a part of me, and I would work so hard with this board. I would. I've read the master plan. I agree with it. These people have done a wonderful job. I restored my yard to 70 to 80% of natural as natives. And as a result of that, the National Wildlife Federation has designated it a miniature native reserve. We fostered over 200 monarchs, protected them from predation, and couldn't do it this year because I was kind of doing something else, running around with this campaign. And I have to read out what I'm a member of because I keep forgetting to tell people the door. I'm a member of the Conservation Foundation, the National Wildlife Federation, the Monarch Watch, Monarch Way Station, Wild Ones of Greater DuPage, Sag-Marine, Native Plant Community, Wild Things, and that's not what you think it is. It's a natural thing. It's not wild things, it's natural things. And I'm also a volunteer for the Westmont Environmental Improvement Committee, where I am their de facto naturalist, because I guess they don't have a real one, but I've done so much work and learning about natives that's what they turn to me when we do things in the village to talk to the people and tell them about invasives. I guess that's it. I don't know what else to tell you, except I wish I had more time. I would tell you more about why I love the natural world and how much I would love to protect it. There is one thing I learned I was down in the southern part of my region, and those people down there are very thirsty and hungry to know what their forest preserve is doing down south of 55th, Route 55. So anyway, that's it. That's all I gotta say.
Okay, well, thank you. That was, and I think everyone else is an incumbent. Is that correct? Oh, Eric.
No.
Right. Yeah. So it's always good to hear from the people that we're just getting to know. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jeff Garris, we know he's an incumbent.
Yes, and yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity to be on this panel. As you might learn tonight, as you probably have already guessed, we are environmental professionals, and we simply have compelling background stories about who we are. And for me, I'm a science and engineering professional. I've worked with the EPA and a couple of nonprofits, including Scarce and Elevate Energy, I've worked with community groups in places like Detroit or Milwaukee to address local environmental issues. I've been active as a volunteer with various groups such as the Sierra Club. And finally, I spent years volunteering for the district off and on to doing restoration work, which is one of my passions. So what does this really mean? Well, I think having me on this board, along with my colleagues, we have established democratic control, which has allowed us to get great things done on the board. And we're supporting a great staff. I think we have such an amazing staff. They tend to make us look better than we would otherwise. So out to the staff. They've been good at planning things, but we give them the right cues. We let them know that we're showing environmental leadership on the board for solar energy, restoration projects, and sustainability planning. We're maintaining the needed infrastructure without raising taxes. I love to say that when I'm at the doors. We're doing this work, but we're not raising your taxes, and people usually smile an extra smile. So we're getting all this work done, but we need to get the message out as clearly as we can. We need help from various other Democrats so that people know what the message is, because I can't reach every door. We're mailing out flyers, but there are a lot of things we're doing with the infrastructure that as you have heard, has not been addressed to the extent it needed to be in past years. And the important issue that we have to address from time to time is, because the issue may come up, and that is, why did we not pursue a referendum for things like the Willowbrook Wildlife Center or various historic building preservation projects like the Mays Lake Peabody Estate? That's a big chunk of money, but we found it timing-wise, it worked better to use our authority to reissue a bond at a lower interest rate. And by managing our money carefully, we're able to get a lot of stuff done without raising taxes. And that fiscal responsibility thing is something we can hammer on over and over again. So that takes something away from the Republicans, because that's all they have, just hammer us on things. And it's reaching the point now they're just making things up. So I don't know what else they can do, right? We got a great story to tell. So I'm having great conversations at the doors. I'm enjoying it very much. And so in short, it's an easy sell. Explaining what we're doing with the preserves and making life better for our residents is something that makes it very easy to talk to people. And I've had some great conversations, and I look forward to serving another 2 to 4 years, depending on the term length. So thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you, Jeff. And our last candidate in the Forest Preserve races is Eric Spandy.
Yeah, thank you for the
Welcome, Eric. Hi.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity of having a chance to address the panel. I'd like to reinforce some of the comments that Dan offered, that with the Democratic leadership, they've really done a great job. And I would be very pleased to join that team. One of the reasons why I moved to Winfield in 1996 was because it was at the nexus of a number of trails, and of course, the Winfield Mounds Forest Preserve, the Klein Creek Farm up to the north, and it just allowed me as a resident in a county of almost 1 million people to pretend that I'm in the community where I grew up in Iowa. So that kind of drove me to reinforce some of my other capabilities. Like, for instance, I'm a environmental scientist, a hydrogeologist. So I've worked for a Fortune 500 engineering company for over 30 years. So what that means is I've had an awful lot of, I can offer that expertise to the board in working on transportation issues, wetland restoration, wetland mitigation, groundwater surface water issues, and of course the Blackwell landfill and a host of other topics. And I'm really looking forward to having that opportunity to add that expertise to an already excellent board. And the other capabilities that I bring to the table, I'm the former mayor of Winfield. And in 8 years, I'm very pleased to say that we turned the village around. It was fiscally crippled. And by the time I left, the reserves were topped off, and it was the best fiscal position that it had been in living memory. When I became village president in 2013, 40% of the roads were in poor to failing condition. And we got that $5 million backlog of road repair done in 2 years without raising taxes. And We also then saved the Winfield Police Department from being outsourced and kickstarted development in a thoughtful and community-focused way throughout the village. So what that shows is that I have an innovative understanding. And I was criticized by some of the people on the board that I put everything in a spreadsheet. Well, you know what? I'm going to consider that an advantage. Doing a cost benefit analysis so you can find the better solutions to address all of the various concerns, to balance expanding and improving infrastructure, which I would completely disagree with our Republicans who don't want to do brick and mortar. When you have an increase in usage from 4 million to 6 million in the recent past, you have to have updated facilities. You have to have better access. You have to approach sustainability. You have to make sure the parking areas are in good shape. I also believe that we should have we should use existing resources to improve environmental restoration and rehabilitation. I think that the Forest Preserve Board has been doing an excellent job, and they've got like 1,000 or so acres under restoration, which I think is excellent, and I think we can do more. I think that the Forest Preserve also needs to find opportunities for partnerships with grants. Like, for instance, as the mayor of Winfield, we partnered with the Forest Preserve to build the $3 million 3-mile-long Winfield Mounds Trail, which was one of the last linkages in the West Branch DuPage River Regional Trail System. And that was one of my crowning achievements as village president. That was a 10-year project, multiple chances or opportunities of going for grants. And in the end, we dragged it kicking and screaming across the finish line. And I'm just so pleased when we had the groundbreaking ceremony a number of years ago. So what I'd like to say in closing is that this is an outstanding team. I absolutely believe that with a lot of hard work and a lot of door knocking and a lot of good messaging, we can let the residents of DuPage County know that each and every one of us either needs to be retained, or those of us who are challenging, we can then add to the existing expertise so we can collectively make better decisions for DuPage. So thank you.
Thank you, Eric. I'm pretty sure I speak for everyone listening to you guys that you are an awesome team. Often when people are running for office, they spend a lot of time talking about what they would change, especially on a board. And what I'm hearing from this group is to build on the foundation that has been laid, and that's the newcomers as well as the incumbents. So kudos to you. This is really, really impressive. So what's also impressive is the expertise that each of you bring to the Forest Preserve. I'm wondering, is there a singular message that you would suggest across the districts, if anyone has an idea about that?
Well, 2 years ago, they ran on building a greener DuPage. I think it was a pretty successful message. And I think one message I would prefer right now potentially is holding the line on taxes, but moving you forward. Because I think an exceptional amount of restoration going on, progress on public safety programs, and really progress on some critical programs for our native wildlife, especially at Willowbrook Wildlife Center.
Could you talk a little about the education programs that you run, especially for children?
Absolutely. So we offer a myriad of educational programs from the youngest little ones all the way up to any age and seniors plus. So we do programs throughout the whole county, but we specialize them at our education sites, including Mays Lake, Peabody Estate, Fullersburg Woods, Denata Equestrian Center, St. James Farm, Klein Creek Farm. And these opportunities will vary from a camp where you can come in for a week or come in for longer. We have things that are active like archery and kayaking and hiking, to flower and plant identification and just general exercise hikes. We have yoga we've done in the woods, So nature health, I think, is going to be the next big, or nature RX, I should say, will be one of the next big things I think we'll try to incorporate, which we have already done. But our education staff and programmers are top notch. We have a manager that we were lucky to get from the Chicago region at the Field Museum. And so we actually have our director from the Morton Arboretum. And so we really, again, have such a excellent staff that does things for free or very nominal charge. And it even extends to our partner agencies like the Friends of Denata. We just had our fall festival, and we had staff and volunteers out there running hay wagon rides, teaching about history of farming, history of the Dan and Ada Rice property. And so I don't know if there's anything specific, but we really are very excited to continue that legacy of excellence.
Okay, are there any questions anyone would like to propose here? I think you wowed us. Nobody has, no one can talk.
I lulled everyone to sleep. It's all good.
Not me. Okay, well, thank you so much. We wish you guys the very best in your what is it, last 4 weeks of campaign? Is it 4 weeks? Is it
Counting? Yes,
3
28
and a half, 28 days. Today is Tuesday. Yes, 28
That's correct.
days.
You bet,
Okay.
4 weeks exactly.
Too long and too short, huh?
Gotta go out and vote. Go out and vote.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for being candidates and wanting to serve our county so well and our state so well. And I think we are ready to adjourn. Our last forum is an issues and a get out the vote forum. That'll be on October 25th. We have a presentation on the Workers' Rights Amendment, on the Safety Act, and on abortion rights. And we have individuals who are very intricately involved in each of those efforts. So we hope that you will come and hear what they have to say. We know that explicitly the Workers' Rights Amendment is the one thing that's on the ballot, but we also know that there's a lot on our ballot that is implicit. So thank you all for coming.
Oh, Flo?
Yeah.
Flo, I think Connie has a question.
Oh,
or you
Connie,
wanna
I'm
make a comment?
sorry.
That's
Please,
okay.
go ahead.
No, you said, is there any comments? And I was just going to say, if anybody on this Zoom feels strongly about any of these candidates, I hope you'll contact them and get out and walk with them, because there is nothing more fun than talking about something you're positive and passionate about. And as you talk to your neighbors and community members.
No,
Thank
and I would
you.
have to warn that Dan walks fast. I walk fast, but he's like a faster walker than me. So he's a great person to walk with. Yeah.
They're both fast, trust me.
Good
I know
to
from personal
know.
experience.
Erica just posted that we have, as you know, we have recorded this event and we will be posting the video on Facebook soon. So please, we'll let you know, and then you can share it. We'll send it out. We'll send the link out from our newsletter, and we'll also make sure that people who were unable to attend can watch the video and find out all the interesting and impressive things that all of you candidates have to offer. So thank you again. And yeah, 28 days.
Thank you
Get
so
some
much.
rest.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Flo.
Good night.
Thank you
Good
so
night.
much. Have a good night.
Take care.
Did you hit the video?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. Where'd it go? What the heck? No, it must be in more. Stop record.